Cuisines from the African diaspora are finally getting the visibility they deserve, and Cafe Kaluchi has been serving authentic Ethiopian food in Oakland since 1991. Their new cocktail program highlighting Black and African spirits pairs perfectly with their menu of traditional Ethiopian food, and they're also the home of Brindo Spices, founded by 2024 Black Women in Food honoree Fetlawork Tefeti, featuring authentic traditional heirloom spices and herbs available in-store and online. So if you're looking to create Ethiopian flavors in your own kitchen, stop by Cafe Kaluchi, have a meal, and pick up Brindo Spices while you're there. Check out Cafe Kaluchi and Brindo Spices on Instagram and join their email list to find out about upcoming events. Okay, so if you're anything like me, you've spent 2024 building your platform and growing your audience. But now that you have, what's next? A website? Marketing media that highlights your brand? Or maybe even a headshot or logo people see long before they ever meet you? DiffWorks specializes in all of these and more. So if you're looking for multimedia and a strategy to help you tell a cohesive brand story, you definitely need to talk to them. Book a consultation today at staydiff.com. Hey, this is Kaja Elliott, Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming. And this is the As Told By podcast. What's up? We're back this week with a new episode of the As Told By podcast. I am here in Oakland this week, recording in one of my favorite places in the city, Black Girls Greenhouse. Y'all know is near and dear to me. It was the site of the first K in the Bay curated dinner. So why am I in the greenhouse talking about food? Because today I'm talking with Ryan Royster and Byron Hughes, the duo behind Last Supper Society, which is a Black-owned brand activation agency designing culturally fluent campaigns at the intersections of food, culture, and experience, unlocking the community building magic of breaking bread as a technology for storytelling. So welcome to the pod, y'all.
What's up, Kaja?
What up?
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We've been trying to work this out for a little bit now, so I'm glad I got Sac in the house today, y'all.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how y'all met. Where do y'all know each other from?
Well, Sac is a small place, so we moved in similar circles. We had a lot of people in common, but I reached out to him. Forgive me if my wife or when my wife hears this, but I was dating someone at the time. This is years ago, y'all.
Years ago.
Back in the day.
I was dating someone. I was trying to pull together something cute for like private chef move at the house for Valentine's Day. And so I hit up Byron. And in true Byron fashion, he just took forever to hit me back. So I ended up hiring somebody else. Shout out to Ricky. Yep. Shout out Ricky. Yeah. But after that, we just tapped in with each other. We went and sat down and had a conversation, and one thing led to another. And we're 4 years into creating this business together.
All right. All right. Y'all came together over, non-food related circumstances. And here you are.
Yep.
Here you are.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So y'all are both from Sac, which maybe like just in recent years is coming to be known as a food town because so much of the resources there, right, with location. Why do you think Sacramento hasn't occupied the same space in the food conversation as San Francisco all along? Or has it? And Byron, you can jump on that one.
Yeah, I mean, this question usually gets deferred to me, right? Because the whole farm to fork movement, I think, is being championed by chefs, of course. So, I think always having been in the shadow of San Francisco or the Bay Area, having been in the shadow of Los Angeles, Sacramento's always kind of gotten overlooked or even driven past, But I think, as with any good food culture or food movement, really food culture of a city, it takes a while to develop. And having just started to get, recognized by Michelin Guide, these are the kind of steps or kind of benchmarks that we see with, places like, Chicago and, the cities that aren't New York and Napa, but I think it's coming. I do have my reservations about the state of food in the city, which I'll keep to myself for now. But, again, I just think Sacramento, even back when I was like 17, 18, getting out of high school or graduating high school, people are like, I want to go to LA, or like, I want to go to New York, or I want to leave SAC. And I don't know, maybe the reason for that is because SAC is just kind of has kind of been a calc town at a certain point. But now we start to see people wanting to come back. So I think that's a positive thing for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger conversation about Sacramento or a city's ability to cultivate creativity. Sacramento births creatives. Sacramento doesn't do a great job of keeping creatives there to do their thing. So many of our friends across creative disciplines feel like the metric of making it is getting out of SAC, so losing creativity, losing creatives as, that cultural capital leaving, is a it's a huge deterrent if you're trying to create, that culture economy or build that up, whether it's artists, whether it's chefs, whether it's whatever the case may be, musicians, keeping them there and wanting and having the ability to do their thing there and to win there, to gain the notoriety there, to make money there with their craft. I think figuring out how to make sure that those things align will keep the talent there, and then it'll continue to grow, because it is growing.
That's interesting. I had a similar conversation with a friend about the filmmaking industry. Shout out to Naima Jordan about people feeling like they need to leave Oakland to be successful in that industry, and them really trying to create initiatives to bring, the message, you really don't have to leave if you want to be in that industry and still stay in the town. So
absolutely,
I hear you on that. Some people might not know. I know I didn't know until I started doing my research for this interview that although Last Supper Society was always slated to be an in-person format, with everything that happened around COVID in 2020, this actually ended up starting as a virtual show, The Cook-In. So I did not know that. So talk about the format for that, and how did you begin conceptualizing bringing the plan of Last Supper Society to life in person?
Wow, there it is again. I swear, I hear about the Cook-In at least like once a week since we've done it.
Okay.
And since we stopped doing it,
I got to go back and watch.
Oh man, and I even just like literally moments before this, we sat down.
It was special to a lot of people too.
Yeah. Oh, I just mentioned it, but yeah, I mean, you want to.
Well, I think so. So for context, we had spent like a year and a half trying to build Last Supper Society, going through the steps. I worked at a creative agency at the time, a branding and marketing agency. So we were like going through the steps of building a brand step by step, doing it the right way, and taking our time with it. And we got to the point where it was time to launch, and it was COVID like a week after we dropped like the first Instagram post. So like everything that we were trying to do, all these like intimate in-person experiences, was exactly what you can't do in a global pandemic. So it just like everybody else, we were just trying to figure it out. And I think our creative pivot, and for us, we had poured so much into building it that we did not have an option of stopping now. So we had to figure something out. And I always think of it like we just jumped out of the airplane with our creativity as our parachute, with nothing else. Like if we don't come up with something, then it's it's not going to open and we're about to hit the ground hard. And that pressure, I think, made it, pressure makes diamonds. We came up with something crazy, and it was really Byron who was like, yo, let's just do something virtual. And I was like, well, I've produced TV. I've produced several TV shows. I've produced content. I was like, we have the full team to do it. I don't know what you want to make a TV show? And he was like, I ain't trying to be on TV. No TV star. I'm trying to cook for people. And then, I was like, what if we did both?
Yeah. And like I was so stuck on wanting to cook with people, like the literal meaning of that that saying, like I want people to cook with me or with us, and that kind of just was an idea that was thrown out, and then we were able to figure out how to connect those two things by literally putting ingredients in people's hands, same ingredients that I had on air, and I would just go through the instructions on how to prepare them. And I don't know, like I said, I still think about it to this day.
So the concept was a live interactive cooking show that was also a talk show.
Okay.
So
you had guests.
So we had guests on the show.
Okay.
So, and we were obviously all remote. So we started, it was straight out the mud. We turned my open format kitchen living room into a studio. We have 5 cameras in there, fully lit.
Oh, y'all had a set.
Oh, we had a set.
Full set.
We had a full set. We were mic'd up and ready to go. Every angle you can think of, just on the plate on Byron's hands while he's cooking in the pot, everything. And guests, or excuse me, the viewers, the interactive element was the viewers would purchase what we called a supper kit. So you would purchase the pre-prepped and packaged ingredients for whatever that week's meal was going to be. We did paella one time. We did gumbo one time. We did coq au vin one time. We went crazy.
Oh, wow.
And this is, you got to remember, because now we're so deep in the DoorDash game that we don't remember that restaurants were just trying to get the to-go thing right. So to get a restaurant quality dish for that beginning of COVID period was impossible, So we were like, we'll just help you cook it at home. So we gave them the ingredients. We would take them in the prep. Byron and the team would take them to a point where, some of the stuff was already done.
Okay.
Right. So you couldn't ruin it. Really. But you are still cooking. But you are cooking, right? And so we went all the way in. We had athletes, activists. Alicia Garza, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, was literally on the show while there was protests outside my door.
Wow.
Protesting in the streets with Black Lives Matter signs. And she was on our, we were filming it right there. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. And there was episodes where we had 500 people cooking along and another 400 or 500 people just watching like it was a TV show.
Where was I? I missed this.
You could pick up your supper kit in Oakland, picked up at Alkali Rye.
What?
You could pick up in San Francisco, pick up in Sacramento. So it was lit. It was every Friday, and it was people come up to us on the streets today talking about that's how we got through shelter in place. We had our date night still, and
wow.
it was dope. And we would have some beverages on air, and we were doing our thing, and we were
I'm definitely going back to watch that.
It was great. Yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so that was far more comprehensive than I thought. So now, how do you transition that back to your original concept of we're going to have these in-person activations with people?
It's all, a lot of it is, most of it is centered around food, right? Whether it's the cooking or whether it's the in-person activations, a lot of it, uses food as kind of the beating heart of it that draws people to it. And, from even before the cooking, the goal is to feed people and to nourish people and to bring people together around the table. With the cooking, we did it virtually, and when it was time to come outside and be outside,
we outside.
Yeah, when it was time for that, we were doing the exact same things, bringing people together to share food and conversation, at a table. And I think the transition, it was just. It was a no-brainer, like it wasn't like we needed to re-engineer something or to come from scratch with some idea. It was just like, let's just get back to what we said we wanted to do from the first place.
Got it.
But it helped us understand our power, though. It took us to a place, by the end of the cooking, we did 3 seasons. We ended up doing 3 seasons of the show. By the end of it, we had corporate sponsors and partners, and we were out of my living room and we were cooking on a real set and doing all of, so once, and we didn't reach out to these brands. The brands saw us get popping and reached out saying, hey, we want to connect to these diverse audiences through what you're doing. So when we came out of the pandemic and started getting back to the grind, it was almost like, our vision for Last Supper Society was too small to start. So that piece about becoming a brand activation agency, we were never that. We were never doing experiential marketing until the pivot. It's like, hell, we're creating something. We create content for people. We create experience, even though it was virtual. We can do this now for these brands, in real life. So it gave us a whole nother element to connect with people and connect the dots from brands to diverse audiences by giving them something authentic to connect to. And we learned, I think, in the pandemic, another thing that we all learned was that these brands are very ill-equipped to have to speak to people who look like us, Black and brown folks in general, especially authentically. And we saw all of the post-George Floyd stilted, awkward, we have to talk to Black people now.
Here's some money.
Here's some money, because we definitely didn't hire in a way that we have anybody in-house to be able to lead those projects. So we decided, hey, let's do it for them.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you mentioned in there. And, sometimes people, I'll refer to it like hustling backwards. You're looking for sponsors to start the project. If you just sometimes do the work, right, and focus on the excellence of the work, you'd be surprised sponsors will show up.
Absolutely. We got it fully out the mud.
Clearly. People picking up food all over the city. Okay, so those activations, those in-person activations, dark hours, are described as underground food and cocktail parties. They operate at restaurants after hours, and they employ really specific themes that usually are very different than what people might know the restaurants for during their regular hours. So, for example, y'all did Tigers in Shaolin at Viridian, celebrating the Year of the Tiger at the time. You've also done Dark Hours to the People at Town Fair, which was based on a celebration of the radical legacy of Black activism in Oakland. How do you collectively come up with the themes that strike the right balance of your mission, the theme's mission, and the restaurant's mission?
I think, Dark Hours was Byron's baby, and that was actually the first real platform that we built outside of the cooking that was, hey, we're going to build this platform for brands to be able to plug in and connect with community. We're going to build this thing our way, and you guys can jump on and jump in and be a part of it and support it and be a part of the connective tissue so that you are truly a part of it if you care, but you have to care, and that's the matter. And that was Byron's baby. And once it was built as a platform, we just started coming up with these concepts and basically telling the brands, this is what we feel like we have our finger on the pulse of community and of culture, and we are out here listening and connecting. We're in, we're in the community, and these are the things that we are recommending that you need to get on board with if you want to have any type of real relationship with your audience.
And then I think a little creatively and maybe a little bit selfishly too, Dark Hours was kind of something that allowed me to connect with my colleagues in a different way and to do these collabs and go into these spaces, maybe places there I'm like, man, it would be so dope to throw a party here, like, and then throwing a party there, when they're closed. That was, again, creatively, I think, the mission and the goal, a big mission and goal with creating that concept for sure.
And coming off the cooking, our audience was big and growing and eager to do things, right? So in a time where the restaurant industry was struggling so bad, trying to get people comfortable coming back indoors, we were like, yo, let's link up with our homies who own restaurants. We were not in the restaurant game yet at that time. We're like, yo, let's bring our audience to their space, and let's do it through the lens of creating community. Like Tigers in Shaolin was, that was, there was huge conversations in the Bay Area and all over about Black and Asian solidarity. It was Lunar New Year. Our homies at Viridian had a dope spot. And we were like, yo, what is the thread in Black and Asian solidarity that we can pull on? And we were like, what about Wu-Tang? You know what I mean?
That would be it.
What about the Wu? You know what I mean? So we threw a party, all about Wu-Tang as this kind of lens for Black and Asian solidarity. So and it was dope, you know. It was really dope, and you actually were a part of Dark Hours to the People, which was we were trying to position that was during Black History Month, and we wanted to have a conversation about how Black folks have used food as a form of resistance and protest. Oakland has a radical legacy of that, whether it's through the Black Panthers and so on. But we were able to tell these stories, and people, as much as people just want to get out and go to a party and eat good food and listen to good music, we found that people really connected to these stories and cared about the stories. And that was that was like our first real programming that we built for brands, and we partnered with Maker's Mark and Beam Centauri, cut the checky.
Us and the homies.
For us to move all around California to build those.
I remember that event being, the food just being so on theme. I remember specifically like the chicken in the shoebox, right? Kind of speaking to Black people's history of packing fried chicken in shoeboxes as they traveled, by car from state to state. Just thinking about it, I actually had like a similar experience where I thought about that. I just got back from Thailand, and we went from Bangkok to Chiang Mai on an overnight sleeper train. But before we went to a night market. It was like, okay, well, if you want to eat on the train, you need to get some food. And they had so much street food, and there was amazing fried chicken. And here I was on the train packing fried chicken. And I'm like, this is like chicken in a shoebox. Just minus the shoebox. Hey, take your habits with you. Byron, in a 2020 article for Comstock's magazine, you both talked about being influenced by watching artists own their authenticity in spaces that we, and Black people from urban backgrounds, typically haven't had access to, or we just didn't feel a sense of belonging there. And we've kind of watched this emergence in the food industry these last few years of people bringing that same sense of home through food to spaces where we traditionally haven't always felt like we belong. So think about like Tatiana in Lincoln Center, thinking about like Dakar in New Orleans in the Deep South, not only doing Black food, but doing West African food. And even if we look here locally, people like, shout out to my homie Fern Stroud, kicking open lanes for Black people to be on the front and the back end of the wine industry. So when you're creating these culinary environments that reflect specific cultural nuances, what is your thought process for doing it in a way that creates an opportunity for people to have a shared cultural experience of cuisine that doesn't feel like they're appropriating the cuisine?
Well, I think the first step is always research. like R&D, research and development, is a big part of my career and my craft. And that research portion of it is usually where I spend the most time at. So, naturally when, having this platform and this spaceship that we've built for ourselves to travel to these places, the first thing that I'm doing is doing my due diligence and making sure that the research is done. Whether it's within the lens of our own culture's food, which I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on, or if it's in the lens of another culture's food, making sure that the work has been done and the practice has been done, I think is a part of the authenticity there. And nothing that we do, though, would I ever consider authentic, or traditional, in terms of cuisine wise, which, could rub some people the wrong way sometimes, which I'm okay with having that conversation with them if that happens. But, the respect is paid for sure to, the ones that upheld those traditions.
I think me not being from the food space, and, us diving deeper and deeper as we were, when Last Supper Society was younger, Byron's commitment to grow through partnership and inviting people into the process instead of us being insular, I think is huge to your point here, and to his point he made in that article, because we're collaborating with people. You came to the Moment Makers event in Oakland, and we're in a neighborhood Ethiopian restaurant, and Adiyam is there. We're not making the injera. You know what I mean? We are consulting with people, not only consulting with people, but inviting them into the creative process. People that kind of are members of these cultures that we may be paying homage to or making some sort of nod to, in an experience, whether big or small. Collaboration's always happening. So I think inviting people into the creative process consistently helps us always be away or from any, cultural appropriation, because they're there. You know what I mean? We're bringing people into it.
Yeah.
Got it.
You can even look back to the Brandon Jew episode of The Cooking. Like doing something that's intrinsically like Chinese is something that I feel like I could execute and do.
It's going to taste good.
And it will taste good for sure. I've learned some Chinese cooking in my career. And, but what's that next layer? What's that next layer that takes it from, oh yeah, this food's delicious, to, oh shit, now we're talking like storytelling now.
Right.
Yeah, real storytelling. I think food storytelling is probably our biggest hallmark and what separates us. You mentioned earlier how, the shoebox lunches and all those things where everything was so on brand or on theme. It's because we're telling a story, and we're not just trying to make food that tastes good, which is just such a, food is always fire, by the way, but but I mean, a lot of people can do that. A lot of people make good food, and for us to just hang our hat on, hey, we make the best food, I don't think is compelling enough to make you care.
I agree.
You
and a lot of people. And the difference is also, part of the experience, right? That's created, Ryan, in that same Comstock article, you referenced the art of marketing experiences as it relates to food. And it reminded me of a conversation I had earlier this season, way back, I want to say in the spring, with Keem Hewley at Bronze. And he talked about the process of designing experiences that consumers want before they know that it's what they want. Last Supper Society has been very intentional in the curation of these really specific environments. And last year's Throughline exhibit is a great example of that. I personally and probably a lot of people as well, had no idea that we wanted a hybridized experience of some of the most amazing women in Oakland who've contributed so much to the culture of the city, combined with art and poetry and music and food. But that's what we got, and we loved it. Talk about how y'all became involved with that project. And then, Byron, I'd love to hear from you how you approached curating a menu where there was a need to reflect so much intersectionality.
Well, first, so shout out Taylor Smalls, shout out Xavier Cunningham. So we met Taylor. We did a event called Art of the Pair. I think a year or a couple years prior to Throughline, where we started turning wineries into art galleries. And we would work with the artist to create a shared like emotional experience where people are coming to the exhibit. You're viewing the work. You eat a bite that is directly inspired by the work, and then you have a sip or a pour that is paired with the work. So it's shared some type of emotional connection. So, you know, a Mourvedre with some powerful piece from, you know, and maybe there was a West African stew Byron made that shared that same spicy power, you know, whatever it is. So you're supposed to have this like fully immersive emotional connection, you know, that each played on each element, right? And Taylor killed it on that. She was amazing. She created works that transformed the whole space, and if you've seen her work, it's transformative. So that was the first time we ever worked with Taylor. So when she came up with the Throughline concept, she reached back out to us to be artists as a part of creating the experience. And this was the first time. And that was like another thing that was unlocked, right? Like we unlocked that marketing piece where, you know, experiential marketing or whatever. So it was like new thing unlocked. And for this one, it was like, yo, and Byron is an artist, a multidisciplinary artist. I'm a creative, but not an artist, I wouldn't say. So that's how we jumped into the Throughline, and it was such an amazing concept. And for me, recently having just moved to Oakland around that time, it was a way for me to entrench myself. My wife was honored to be one of the women in muses in Throughline, so it was a no-brainer for us to jump in and be a part of it.
Yeah, and to discuss the, you know, coming up with that idea, I think was actually a little layup from Ryan. But we had been at the drawing board trying to figure out like, how do we bring something with as much gravity as this show that doesn't distract or take away from the show? It should be complementary to the show, to the main meat of it, so to speak. And, you know, kind of coming, I'm glad you mentioned the Art of the Pair too, because that's actually where it kind of came from, was, you know, thinking about that complementary thing with food and what other things it can complement, right? Like we actually have found that we can complement your visual experience with food. We can complement your audio experience with food. So knowing that we unlocked that and kind of had that in our back pocket, we kind of applied that to the same ethos of the show, which is like, let's honor hella people at one time and show them all the same amount of love and respect in this space. And yeah, like I said, we just applied that same kind of kind of sensory style of thinking to the each of the subjects of the show. Some of them were easier than others. Like some were like, oh, this color just speaks to me, and you know, we use the color to play off of, and the food was a similar color. But some were super conceptual. Like, you know, there was like one that had like her hair was like, it looked kind of like smoke. And so, you know, that's what struck me. And so, you know, we integrated smoke in the dish to kind of do a little play there. So it was an art project. super fun art project.
Super creative. Loved checking that out. Love that exhibit. Shout out to all the people that were a part of that, the muses, as you said. You mentioned this a little bit ago, but one of the consistent threads I've observed in your events is that strong partnership with sponsors. And I can imagine, like, in today's day and time, with just the sheer number of players in the game around events, it can be hard to make sure you have something sponsors actually want to get behind. And not only once, but on a consistent basis, right? So for people listening who might be working through that step for their own endeavors, what can you share that was helpful for y'all, not just in securing sponsored relationships, but also in identifying those that were going to be aligned with your mission?
That's a great question. I think first we made it a huge priority to understand our creative lens and kind of who we are, and then start filtering our creativity through that, right? So that it wasn't just, this is going to be fun, or this is going to taste good, but what if we take these ingredients, if we take these spaces, if we take these experiences, and if we have a Last Supper Society lens here that we can then filter it through, and it comes out on the other side authentically us. Like, we have to create that first. So once we created that filter, I feel like we had, it's our point of view, it's our tone, it's our voice, it's something that always has seasoned with some rebelliousness to it. It always has that rebel voice to it. It always has community centered. It always has diverse audiences centered. Then brands can see that and just know that they want to plug into something that we're doing, right? And I think that understanding of who we are needed to come first in order to be valuable to brands. And we were able also to then take that from, hey, we're creating something, you come be a part of it, to let us build something for you. What are your brand goals? And then trust us to build you something that will accomplish those goals, or, for the corporate speak, the KPIs and, you know what I mean? And checking those boxes, and we can measure this, we can measure the efficacy of this, whether it's reach, whether it's engagement, whether it's sales, whatever your brand is looking for, but it's going to be authentic. And I think brands slowly but surely started understanding that they needed help, especially after we saw all of these fumbles coming out of the pandemic, and then an overcorrection to just throwing money at things without saying anything. But it was like, hey, let's get this messaging right. Let's actually have you plugged in to community and culture. And we found that. So to help, or to give people advice, I would say, establish what your voice is. What is your value? What is it that you do that is going to, or what is it that you create that is going to help a brand connect? Build your audience, because, audience sharing, or bringing a brand in to connect with your audience is always valuable. Your audience is always going to be super valuable to them.
And for the creatives and artists out there that are trying to figure that part out, just find a Ryan. Because they can focus on the partnerships while we keep painting the picture. No, seriously though. Like, I feel like that, in my career as a creative and artist, even beyond the chef stuff, like, and then trying to do it as a chef, like, I've done a bunch of pop-ups, I've done a bunch of small things, but nothing was ever, I wasn't able to take it to another level. And, Last Supper Society, I feel like very quickly reached that level. And I know that it's because of, we have both pieces right here. We have, which we're both heavily involved in the creative decisions that this company makes, how we show up in the world and everything. But, in terms of the business structure, having the artist be the artist and the business developer be the business developer. It's very helpful.
Clear lanes.
Yes.
Okay. Look, well, we've certainly been lucky to witness the growth of Last Supper Society. Most visibly for me, most recently was this past June. Y'all took over Oakland Museum of California with that incredible Juneteenth celebration that you were a part of. So I would love for you to share a little bit about what the behind the scenes of that was like. I'll tell you, as an attendee, it was amazing. I was so happy for y'all, like kind of watching y'all, Chef Michelle McQueen, Chef Nelson, all the people that kind of came together to make that event. Not just to make it, but there was so much community. There was so much warmth. It was incident free, right? Especially during a time where, if we're just being honest, a lot of people have feelings about coming to downtown Oakland and having that be a favorable destination. So what was that like? Man, it looked busy.
I think we gotta jump back to 2020. So we're part of a creative collective called Hella Creative. So shout out Miles Dotson, shout out Brian Watson, Quentin Harris, and a bunch of super dope Black creatives from Oakland and the Bay in general. And we all got together in the pandemic just to stay connected with one another and to bring people into the fold. And we were just doing like virtual happy hours and things like that. But once we realized who was on these Zooms, we're like, yeah, let's do something. So we built a campaign called Hella Juneteenth. This campaign ended up getting, by the end of it, a social media campaign, hashtag Hella Juneteenth, 805 companies across industries to acknowledge Juneteenth as a paid holiday for their employees. So we created resources for, internal brand comms to be able to educate brands to speak to their employees about Juneteenth, what it is, how to celebrate, so on and so forth. The campaign had 300 million unique impressions. Jack Dorsey was on it from Twitter. So all of these brands, major corporations signed on, supported, and then a year later, Juneteenth becomes a federal holiday. We get shouted out as part of one of the grassroots organizations, along with many other amazing groups of Black folks with boots on the ground making it happen. And then we did the first Hella Juneteenth in Sacramento.
Okay.
So we did the first one in Sacramento in 2021. And 3,000 people pulled up right in the heart of downtown Sacramento. And it was crazy. It was dope. Fast forward to this year. And we just thought bigger, better, and Blacker. Like, how can we do more? And how can we do it in a space, again, going back to what you originally said, like, we're going to do the Blackest of all celebrations at an art museum. You know what I mean? And shout out to Oakland Museum for consistently reflecting community.
Yes.
But in general, museums aren't where you see our things unless they've been stolen from our people. Some artifacts that have been taken. So we wanted to show up and celebrate Blackness en masse as loud as possible. And we did that.
Y'all did do that.
Yeah. And the first one we were the whole idea is like behind the food was like, this is a cookout. This is a cookout. What are some of the hallmarks of a cookout? Somebody's uncle's on a grill with the, with the shoes on, with the hat. Somebody, it's somebody's bringing ribs, somebody's bringing this, somebody's doing that. And so kind of channeling that energy through a large scale event has both times been quite a challenge because, when you have a potluck list and it's like, all right, what you finna bring? It might take them, especially when you're dealing with chefs, it might take them a little while to get back to you about what they're gonna bring, and even just getting them locked out on like the portion sizes and the quantity and how the money's gonna work and all that. It's definitely a challenge. But what you end up getting and what the guest ends up getting to experience is, plate of food that's, you'll maybe never get to have a plate of food like this ever again. You'll never have a plate of food with Byron and Nelson and Michelle's food on it at the same time. Right. So, thinking about it in that sense, and everybody always wants to, bring a home run to that. All the chefs want to bring a home run dish to that. So I think the food offering is something that's evolved for sure, but we'll always kind of retain that ethos there.
Yeah. It was such a nice balance of like that energy you said, the casualness of the cookout, but still with that little bit of high-end flair that y'all are known for. Like tequila tasting, the glass was actually ice.
Yep.
I was like, the glass is melting in my hand. It is really ice. I'm like, okay, this is fly.
Did you get on the spades table at all?
I didn't get on the spades table. No,
okay.
I didn't get on the spades. I checked out Black Vines and, there was a merch section and there was the wobble, of course, and the electric slide.
Yep. Shout out the Golden State Valkyries pulled up and helped us curate the kid zone. Yeah. Shout out Smoking Woods on the ribs and chicken.
Yes.
Went crazy. All of our partners there. We had amazing partners from who do we have out there? We had Maker's Mark out there. Was a big one. True Ventures was out there.
Uplifters.
Butcher Box, Uplifters. Yeah. I mean, it was a labor of love. And it was a beautiful thing. And y'all showed up.
It was a lot of people out
Apologies for those who didn't make it in. Y'all got to get tickets ahead of time. Don't be mad at us, but
get in early. Get in early. Byron, you were one of the chefs that was included on Breaking Bread Sacramento, which is a documentary series focused on the food story of that region. And you talked about the premise of creating within walls and what can be a monotonous experience of being at a place in your culinary career where there just isn't a lot of room for unique expression and the toll that can take on people over time. What has it meant to you for your perception of career longevity to be part of Last Supper Society, where you have so much creative license to dial into the story of food at such a deep cultural level?
I mean, first of all, I'm extremely blessed to have this. And, we did build it. Well, we built it to our spec, but, definitely the business part of it, like handling the business part of it, making sure the bills are paid and stuff like that. Very thankful for that part to be out of the way as well, because that kind of opens up the doors to be able to think about what the walls look like and how you want to paint them. And I know that for a lot of chefs and cooks, regardless of what, position on the totem pole you're on, if you have that creative kind of soul, and that's what fulfills you and that's what you want to do in cooking, you still got to handle your business and make sure those bills are paid. So, it does kill off a lot of potentials. I think that could be great, but the walls thing, I was able to stop thinking about walls once I got out of them. I had to get out of cooking, get out of working, this crazy schedules and, these crazy hours and doing things that are like kind of would be considered unreasonable to certain people or to some people. To even take inventory of what fucking walls I'm existing in. It's really go. And you're chasing, maybe experience, or you're chasing, that resume builder job or whatever it is. And getting out of that, I think, was one of the most liberating things I was able to do. And then with Last Supper Society, it's like, not only like are we able to take inventory of the walls, we can build the walls however we want. We can have a 4-wall room, we try to have a 6-wall room, we can have a room with only 3 walls that open on one side or something. And then go ahead and paint those walls and hang up whatever art that you want. But again, just having that business part of it taken care of. Yeah. It goes back to that, I think.
Well, shout out to y'all for building something that you can make what you want it to be, right? Shout out to No Walls.
Yes.
All right. What's next for y'all? What's next for Last Supper Society?
We're trying to do a lot more art projects. Shout out to Throughline for awakening that and I think there was a point in time where we swerved a little too heavily into the brand activation part and away from the culinary design studio part. And understanding, again, to pay bills, there needs to be a balance, but we're trying to figure out now how to bridge these art projects do pay the bills. And we have some really dope announcements coming up. We actually we can say one of them. We're doing something November 16th with Jonathan Carver Moore, who's an amazing Black curator who has an exhibition called Verses, which is live right now at 419 in San Francisco. And we are doing an accompaniment to that called Balance and Conflict. So it's all about sport and competition, and how the culturally pervasiveness of sport and competition. So we are giving our take on that as an accompaniment to the art show. And then we have actually a lot coming down the pipeline with 419. We will be doing quite a bit of experiences there throughout 2025. We have some stuff slated out here in the Bay for NBA All-Star Weekend coming up. Okay. Check for that. With some dope partners that we're excited to announce soon-ish. But I think what's next for us is to get activity. We need to get more active. And for us who, not that we were less active, but less active with things that the community can be at.
Okay.
So I think it was, again, talking about that kind of swerve where we went a little bit too much of, hey, we're just building these dope things for these brands, but they're for them, they're for them, and everybody can't just pull up.
Right.
But getting back to that good balance of creating things. And I think Oakland is super inspirational for me. Being able, I never, as diverse as Sacramento is growing up, with people from all walks of life and across the spectrum, I never really saw Blackness as fully actualized as I do in Oakland. Like you don't have to go to the Black spot to see Black people.
Yeah.
You can just go outside.
Right.
And we're there. We're everywhere. And I love that. And it's super inspirational for me to create in that, within that environment. So look for a lot more stuff here too.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to it. We'll be here ready to support. Thank y'all so much for talking with me today. Tell people where they can find out more about each of you and more about Last Supper Society.
At Last Supper Society on IG.
Yep. At Last Supper Society on IG. You will see literally tomorrow something, or I don't know when this is going to go live.
It'll probably be out before.
It'll be out.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're at the end of October now. Something will be dropping here at the end of October for the Versus exhibit for that experience.
Like an hour ago, 2 hours ago.
Okay. Well, it just dropped. I'm late. So jump on that, grab tickets to that. That's going to be a special one. But yeah, find us on the gram and tap in with us.
Okay. Well, listen, y'all, it's been so good to sit down and talk, find out a little bit more behind one of, the things I've enjoyed most in the Bay. Y'all's activations are always a good time.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. If you want to keep up with me in between episodes, you can find me on IG at Hey K in the Bay. That has been this week's episode of the As Told by podcast from beautiful Black Girls Greenhouse. Thank you for letting us use your space today. And I'll see y'all on the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.